Right now, one of Minnesota's most critical hospitals, Hennepin County Medical Center, is facing a serious funding crisis. At times, they only have like 7 days of cash on hand, and lawmakers are running out of time to act. There's a broad agreement across parties and across the state that action is needed. HCMC is the busiest level 1 trauma center in Minnesota. But there's still no agreement on how to get it done. And some Republicans are bragging about doing nothing. When asked earlier this month why the GOP hasn't done anything in the legislature, Representative Bjorn Olson said, "That's exactly what we want." DFL leaders have put forward plans to stabilize the hospital and protect care for Minnesotans, while Republicans continue to oppose the kind of long-term solutions needed to keep it strong. And this isn't something that only affects one community. If a deal doesn't come together, the impact would ripple across Minnesota's entire healthcare system. And with just weeks left in session, the clock is ticking. So today, we're joined by Senator Doron Clark, my state senator, who's been working to help get a deal across the finish line before the end of session. Senator Clark, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, neighbor, and thanks everyone for joining today. You're the front lines, and we need you doing the work. So thank you for being informed and plugged in.
Absolutely. For folks who may be new to this topic, what is the Hennepin County Medical Center, or HCMC, as we call it? What do they do? And from your perspective, what's actually at stake if Minnesotans if lawmakers don't act this session?
So Hennepin County Medical Center, also affectionately known as HCMC, they also go by a couple other monikers, but I think everybody basically knows it as HCMC, is located in downtown Minneapolis near US Bank Stadium. So if you visited a Vikings game, you may have gone, oh, there's HCMC. And so while it's downtown, it's in downtown Minneapolis, it is a statewide resource. And every hospital administrator that I talk to is like, we need that hospital. It is a place where we send our most difficult cases, and it's places where folks are getting helicoptered in from across the upper Midwest all the time. If you have a diving incident, HCMC is the only place where you can basically be brought back to health with the hyperbaric chamber, to make sure that you are brought up from the bends that you may be suffering. If you have a traumatic ATV incident, they often bring you to HCMC because that is the place where they do it well and are able to bring folks back to health. So it serves patients across the state. It's also a teaching hospital. The University of Minnesota said, if we lose this, we lose one of the key places that we train up the doctors who serve all across Minnesota. So this is one of those linchpin places that we need to support all of Minnesota.
Absolutely. Living in Northeast Minneapolis, we, Senator, see those helicopters coming every single day, bringing people from greater Minnesota to HCMC to get the treatment they need. They take patients from across the state, relying on HCMC for trauma, burn, specialty care. How do you talk to colleagues and constituents about why this is truly a statewide asset and priority?
I start with, so here in Northeast, we need it because it's right next door. And then I talk about it with folks across the state. So I grew up in Southeast Minnesota on a sheep farm, and it was a spot where, you could either go to Mayo or they're going to send you up to HCMC for that emergency care. So I share the stories that I have of when, Kevin Wingert had an issue and they had to figure out, where are they going? Are they sending into HCMC or Mayo? And that's the case throughout the state. So it's reminding folks, telling the stories over and over. And that's what I think folks need to do. And, when we ask, what can you help with? Jeff Strand, I need you telling the story out in Yellow Medicine County of making sure that folks know why HCMC helps the Granite Falls area.
Fantastic. You're from Eota?
I'm from Eota. Yeah.
I was trying to remember if I recall that correctly. All right, we're seeing a combination of rising uncompensated care, Medicaid reimbursement gaps, and Trump's federal changes putting pressure on hospitals. First, we heard about the harms to rural health care, and now this is showing up in Minneapolis. How did we get to this point, and what does that tell us about what kind of solution is needed?
Yeah. So we've been seeing increasing uncompensated care for several years now, really since the end of the COVID emergency. So a couple of years ago, uncompensated care, that is folks that sort of showed up and didn't have health insurance, didn't have ability to pay, was in the 20 to 30 million dollars. And then it went up to 50 million. And now this year it's going to be about 104 million. And of that number each year, 104 million. About a quarter has been from outside of Hennepin County and the seven county metro area. So it's again an instance where everyone is sending folks to HCMC. Well, the property taxpayers of Hennepin County have been picking that up and going, all right, this is starting to get untenable. And then Trump and Republicans, HR1, were like, all right, we're cutting Medicare and Medicaid reimbursements, just is pushing this over the edge. So where we were precarious, Trump is pushing HCMC over the edge, where it's a $170 million cut per year that is going to add up to a closed HCMC if we don't do anything. So it's been slowly building problem that Trump is just pushing over the edge.
So in Minneapolis, in order to build the Twins stadium, they did a sales tax, right? And Hennepin County agreed to levy that tax in order to help pay the stadium. That stadium has been paid off very, very quickly, much faster than they expected. And because of that, it's like one of the solutions is, hey, let's just convert that tax and allow that to fund this other regional asset. If the Twin Stadium was a regional asset, certainly HCMC is a much more important regional asset. I love the Twins, but HCMC is critical. So that is one of the adjustments. There's also the idea of a one-time stabilizing fund. What do you see as the most responsible path forward, and what's holding up a deal?
So two things that we need to do is a one-time cash infusion. Just get some money in now. But it's not just for Hennepin County, this one-time cash infusion. It's for hospitals across the state. So we're working through a $300 million package that includes about $150 million directly to HCMC over a couple of years, and then rural hospitals across the state as well. We need stability across the state. But that isn't the long-term solution. And so what you're describing, Richard, as sunsetting the ballpark tax and turning it into a healthcare facilities tax is going to be help with the longer term. Now, if it's a quarter-cent sales tax, that's about $54 million a year, which probably, well, it doesn't make up that $170 million per year cut that Trump is putting on HCMC. So we need to figure out, and sales taxes are not great solutions. They're great gaps until we can figure out how are we funding this in a more progressive way. I'm always looking for how do we take it from the general fund and then we're getting it from income taxes so we can tax the most well off to help take care of all of us. So what's preventing it from getting over the finish line? Priorities. We need to remind folks that this is a priority, that our healthcare, that our hospitals are necessary for all of us. And so it's in part, tell your stories, make sure folks know why this is important for everybody across the state of Minnesota.
Fantastic. We are constantly talking about using your own personal story about why this is important. We need to elect, like people like Jake Johnson in the first district, and we need to beat Tom Emmer. We need to take back Congress so that we can actually start to recover from the big ugly bill that is really good, the thing that's putting so much pressure on these. What's one action Minnesotans, including folks on this call, can take right now to save HCMC and get a solution across the finish line? What do you want us to do?
I want you to make sure folks know that this is a priority. This is your priority. So it's saying this is worth the investment. This is not something that is optional. Too often, I think people are like, well, it's this or this. We need it and we need the other pieces. So let folks know that this is critical to wherever you are in the state of Minnesota.
Okay, so we have Daryl from Candy, Ohio. We want you to call your Republican state representative. It might be Baker. Deb Hoganson down in Waseca. Call your Republican state representative. We need you all to weigh in and make sure these people understand that the asset of HCMC is a statewide critical care access hospital for everyone, and start making those calls today. Senator Doron Clark, the Clarks of Iota, thank you for joining us today. Really appreciate all of your service to the state of Minnesota and for representing Northeast Minneapolis. And Jeff Strand, make your phone call too. Thanks, Senator. Have a great day.
Take care.